Okay, so today we're going to talk about anchor activities and just take a look at that instructional strategy, what it is, when you may use it, and how it can be useful for your classroom. So, what does that mean? What is an anchor activity? The best way that I know to describe it when I was looking it over and looking at the information page, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, was it reminded me of a sponge activity. It was meant to increase student cognition and it was meaningful. But when we think about Kagan and the fact that kids can sometimes get done with their work early, or they may finish a cooperative grouping activity before another group, they need something called a sponge activity, something to kind of soak up that time. But we want it to be linked to content. We want it to be related to student interest so that it's engaging for them. And then also, we need it to be developmentally appropriate so that it's something that they can do independently, completely independently. It's not busy work. So, this is something that would need feedback some way or another, not something that they're just going to do and then never get to look at again. It's not going to be new content. It's not going to be something that they have to teach themselves. And then it's not going to be something that you're going to have to provide a whole lot of direction on. So, when might you use this activity? These might be useful at the beginning of class, kind of as a bell ringer to get kids focused. I know several of our math teachers have something similar to this where the kids come in and they get started right away on the questions that are on the board. A lot of times, they are spiral review questions, things that the kids should already know but need maybe some more practice with. You also may use these again after a student completes an activity, but other students are still working, kind of like when we do those Kagan cooperative grouping activities, or when a student is stuck on an activity, but you as the teacher are not available. This would be something great for them to be able to get out and kind of go along with that ask three before me. You may even add that into your rule. So ask three, do your sponge activity, and then ask me, something like that. So one other reason why this type of instructional strategy is so important and so useful is it can actually help teach self-regulation. This is a self-regulation strategy that helps students learn both in school and later in life kind of how to regulate their learning. For example, they may say things like, okay, I don't understand this. What can I do? Okay, well, I'm going to ask my neighbor. Okay, they don't know. I'm going to ask the person across from me. They don't know. Okay, I'm going to get out my anchor activity, or I'm going to get out my sponge activity, and I'm going to work on that for a little while until my teacher is available for me to ask them. So just knowing how to regulate that and something else for them to do that is useful for them instead of sitting and maybe not being engaged at all. So, how do you implement this? This is kind of a roadmap that breaks it down. So, first thing, as with everything that you do, you want to set those expectations. Look at that on-task behavior, task completion. How does that work? What was expected of them for completing that task, and then what's their goal for that task completion? Is it going to be a percentage, so many correct? Is it going to be you should have this much complete by this time? Whatever that looks like for you and the way that you're implementing that activity. And then you got to make sure that you provide the correct materials, written guidelines, kind of like a rubric if that's needed, and then also scaffolding as it's needed. We all know that not all students need the same things. So you may need to scaffold this a little bit more for certain individuals. Then it says develop groups. So pull small groups and have others work on anchor activities. That's something that you could also do while you're doing this. So after you set those expectations, after you provide those materials, then that's when you pull your small groups and you can work with individuals while they are working on their anchor activities if you choose to do this during the class instead of maybe at the beginning or at the end. And then we also want to provide choice. So differentiate the activities and think about the end products. Is this something that they're going to be presenting? Is it something that they're going to create and publish? Is it something that they're just going to turn into you? What does that end product look like? And could your students have a choice in how they develop that end product? And then as an all work, anything that you do, you always want to monitor their work, collect that end product, and provide feedback. If you don't do that, then it does kind of turn into busy work because the students don't see the value in it most of the time. Oh, look at that. I forgot that I had set my arrows to animate. Don't you hate it when you do that? You're presenting, you had an animation, you forgot about it. So some examples of an anchor activity would be that journal writing where you would need a rubric, an opinion writing, again, you're going to need a rubric. Those would be great for social studies. It's the first thing that comes to my mind, thinking about how they feel about a certain situation that happened in history that you're studying, and maybe what their opinion is about how it all went down. Vocabulary games, those are great in both reading and math. I know using those math vocabulary words, the more likely they are to use them, the more likely they are to write with them whenever they're doing that KSA end of year testing. Flashcards, again, first thing that comes to my mind is fluency for math, getting out a set of flashcards and going over those multiplication problems so that they become more automatic. Choice boards, this is something I just worked on with third grade. They're gearing that more towards their high level kids, but you could have 3 different levels of choice boards for a unit. And you could do a more rigorous choice board and scaffold that down as you need it and assign it to the correct kids on Google Classroom, for example. Logic problems. Again, math comes to mind. I think about Marcy Cook tiles. Right off the bat, I know we have a folder from Alice Cantrell with lots of examples of Marcy Cook tiles. If you're ever interested in that or want any of that, I'd be happy to get that for you. And then independent reading. I see lots of our reading teachers using an independent reading center, but they have a blank graphic organizer with the skill that they're working on for that independent reading center, which is fantastic because that holds them accountable. Or have them independently read and then do a book review over that. So, as I'm sure you know, we are doing Coach's Cash for anybody that watches this video. So because it's an ed puzzle, hopefully that'll show up and you won't have to do anything else. If you do want to implement this strategy, here's that 1-page handout that kind of gives you some more information about it. And of course, always just let us know if there's anything we can do to help you or any resources we can gather for you. Thanks, guys.